What is up, everyone? Skratch coming up with another Raid Shadow Legends video. Today we got Seth on the channel. What's up, Seth? How are you doing, buddy? Nice to have you on the channel.
Yeah, not doing bad. I'm surviving in the heat wave of this godforsaken summer already. I mean, it's only June, and I don't know how we're going to cope for the rest of the year, but it's warm. It's very warm in the UK right now.
It is actually. I got a fan as well in here just to kind of like keep me going because it's super hot. Like in the small space, the green screen behind me, the desk, the PC, everything just generating heat. The reason why I got Seth on the channel, guys, is because he is one of the few content creators out there that agreed with kind of like my take on the Polymorph. He had pretty much the same sort of a take. So I was like, yeah, why not? Brothers in arms, let's kick on it and talk a bit about Polymorph in here, because yeah, this is not a nerf. It is the most busted thing in the game when we are talking about endgame, arena, and everything else that's happening. It's kind of like the carrot on the stick that people will follow in order to get better at arena. You want to get better at arena, summon soulstones, get polymorph, you're going to be OP after, you know, basically. That's kind of like how
great strategy, really, if you think about it.
It's a good one,
How can we sell souls and make it look like we balanced the arena? It's like, no, you didn't. You did nothing. It changes nothing. But, I mean, for player move, it's perfect because it does put emphasis on getting higher souls for polymorph because you think you need it, when really one-star polymorph is still dominant. I mean, even one-star with fearsome presence, like basically one tier 6 mastery doubles the quality of a blessing. Like, come on.
Absolutely.
Crazy.
And the main problem with it is that most of the champions that are going against polymorph, like if you're talking about Raman to Madame series and all these champions that kind of like got instantly vaulted after the addition of polymorph, they're not attempting to do something on the enemy once, you know, like they're stripping buffs, they're landing debuffs and all these things, you know, and they have like a gazillion times chance to get polymorph. Basically, that's kind of like
that's the fundamental problem with it. I mean, it's basically, when you look at it, they've just like literally today bug fixed the Mighty Uko thing where his A2 had a double chance of applying stun set and provoke set and stuff. They've bug fixed that because they're saying, well, if you're using an artifact set, you only get one chance, even if you hit them like 500 times. Well, isn't that should be the same concept here? Like, polymorph is literally activating on any instance. That's why it's so strong. And I remember polymorph coming out. I remember Playroom coming out and basically saying, oh, well, polymorph is not that strong. It's only 20% chance. Without actually realizing, well, yeah, sure, it's 20% chance once. But when you've got 4 debuffs and when you're removing 8 debuffs, like if you've got 2 champions, both of them are polymorph and both of them have 5 debuffs, that's 10 debuffs. That's like 10 buffs you're removing. Well, 20 times 20 times 20, like it's gonna happen. It should just be one roll. If it was just one roll, polymorph would be so much more balanced.
Just look at Romantus 8-2 basically. So you're telling me that this is a 20% chance to get polymorphed?
No. Like, if you attack a single target, it's what's even worse about this is, well, if you land all 4 debuffs and you still haven't got polymorph, well, everyone's now going to get true fade, so you've got 3 more chances to get polymorphed. It's like poor Romantu, the most expensive champion to get in terms of time and energy and effort and
vaulted
glyphs, and he's basically a bot for Doom Tower. Basically,
yeah, it's really unfortunate actually, because he's such a good champion, you know, and I would love to see him back in the mix. But guys, before we're gonna move over to cover more things about these sort of topics, the one thing that I do want to cover is the word on the street was going like this: even if you don't have accuracy on your Ramantu and you're attempting to use the A3 against a high resistance champion with polymorph and you're getting resisted, you still have the chance to proc polymorph and become a ship. So that's one thing that we gotta kind of like cover and ensure that the word on the street is disappearing. Saf actually was able to confirm it from the coding that you need accuracy in order for the polymorph to kind of like proc. I'm not sure if before was maybe like a bug for a while, it got fixed and was actually allowing you to get polymorphed even if you are getting resisted and none of the actions were actually going against the target, but that thing doesn't work anymore. So if you don't want to get polymorphed, don't use accuracy on your champion basically. So I would just kind of like wanted to cover on that.
Essentially what has to happen is you need to have removed at least one buff. you need to have stolen at least one buff, or you need to have placed one debuff. One of those three conditions needs to match in order for it to roll the effect that then determines if you get sheeped, right? So the process with Polymorph, which is why it never worked in the Mastery originally, like a lot of people used to say, oh, it used to work with Fearsome Presence, and I was like, it doesn't, because it's the same thing with Petrification. It's a brand new way that it's coded, is it goes into a calculation stage, which is not placing a debuff. It does, okay, have I taken a buff? Have I taken one buff, stolen one buff, or have I replaced a debuff? One of those three. If I've passed that condition and I can be transformed, then it rolls the percentage. And if it successfully rolls the percentage, then there's a 100% chance after that point for you to get sheeped. So the actual placing of the debuff doesn't happen in the blessing. That's an after effect. You get transformed into a sheep without being debuffed in a sort of a technical way. But if you basically don't steal a buff, you don't remove a buff, and you don't place a debuff, then you cannot be sheeped because you haven't passed the conditions. You have to have completed at least one of those for it to roll. And then it rolls per attempt, essentially. If it's, every time so if I've got 5 enemies or 4 enemies and 3 of them have got Polymorph, it will roll once for every single buff that I try to remove, because every buff removal is an individual attempt.
Okay,
really
so
bad.
that's one thing. So for example, let's just say you start the fight with 5 buffs on your team, right? Like you have 5 buffs on your Duchess that has Polymorph. So when I'm attempting to remove all those buffs with one skill that strips all buffs, will basically roll for each one of the buffs individually.
Yes. So it's like 0. So it's like 20% chance times 20% chance times 20% chance times 20% chance. So basically, if you're facing a 6-star Polymorph or even a 5-star Polymorph, and that champion is with Siphi, and you try to remove the buff, then it's almost guaranteed you're going to get polymorphed.
Yeah, like
it's going to happen.
It's guaranteed with this, yeah.
Which
like
is why
100%.
you don't use Ceres. And like Madame Cerise for years and years, when I started playing the game, was the best.
GOAT. The GOAT, yeah.
Awesome. Like you pulled Madame Cerise, it was like pulling Krisk for Arena. It was so good. I've not seen Madame Cerise in Arena in about 6 months. And that
like
only
in the
needs
high
to tell
tiers, she doesn't exist. She doesn't exist anymore.
That just needs to show you the impact this one blessing is having, because it has eradicated the usage of a champion in like what me and Skratch here would call the meta, right? This video is not really going to affect the bronze 1 player or the player in live arena that's just starting, or the player that's level 50 that's still working through progression, right? That's not yet. You're not going to face it.
Wait for it, yeah.
It's going to get there. You're going to climb to that point, but this really impacts your silver 4 live arena gold 1 players, because they're the ones that are going to be facing 5-star Awakening. They're the ones that are going to be going, well, more active players, more Iron Twins farming, maybe more event rewards. I've picked up a few souls here or there. I've thrown Polymorph in because, hey, let's just slot the champion that just makes it so easy to win an arena, because I can just turn you into a sheep and then your champion is a bot. And I don't need to do anything for it. I just put the blessing on. Hey, like that Brimstone blessing, right? That shouldn't be for tanks.
Yeah.
So we had to put accuracy on it and everything. Yeah. Sure.
If they were actually nerfing Polymorph in the same way they've done with Brimstone, like you can remove it and all that, that was somehow a nerf, but was still an empowerment towards having the 6-star on it. Was a bit more OP like that, but was an actual nerf like that.
Well, but the biggest nerf to Polymorph, to Brimstone, wasn't the accuracy requirement.
No, that was the easy
that was the
part,
infuriating one for it was basically a big problem for someone like Walking Tomb Drang and Ronda, right? Who basically you didn't really need accuracy on them. Apart from those champions, the biggest problem was the protection.
Yep.
The protection was the problem, because you basically made it so that
it's
Sand Devil can cleanse it, Hydra can cleanse it, like any boss that cleanse debuffs, like New Ice Golem can cleanse it. Like that was the biggest nerf. They didn't do that with Polymorph. All they did was do the first part, which was, oh, okay, you need accuracy now.
Well, yeah, because they want to keep the people on it, like spend money. How I said at the beginning, you want to get good at arena, get Polymorph. You want to get even better, get a Marichka and a Taras.
But the irony of that change, as we'll probably talk about this more detail, is you don't need a 6-star Polymorph.
No, not at all, actually.
Don't. 1 star is just like enough. Like, if you've got a soul and you're on a Duchess, what else are you going to pick?
Yeah, of course. You're gonna go for it, because if you're not doing it, basically what's gonna happen, you're gonna open your door and invite them in to bring Ramanto, Like it doesn't matter if if you're going in with accuracy on your Duchess or no. Like, it's not very likely that people will be able to build Ramantu with 500 resistance, 700-800 accuracy to be efficient. Yes, you might get away with some of the teams where you're gonna give him 400 resistance, 500 accuracy. The opponent's team is weak, is not gonna have resistance on any of the champions that matter, that can cleanse, that can do something to eradicate everything that Ramantu did, and you're gonna get lucky and get the win in. But that's not gonna be the case for most of the people that do play the game at a higher level and know what they're doing, you know. So it's not really gonna be an impactful thing, you know.
Even that, you're basically indexing a champion to try and deal with like a 2-star polymorph or something like that, right? You're basically indexing a champion so hard into resistance and accuracy that probably they'll just get one shot, and you haven't even dealt with the fact that reaction exists, stone skin exists, like cleansing effects exists, ultimate death knight. Like, you haven't even dealt with the problems, because Ramantu does suffer from ultimate death knight problems because you don't land the first debuff, so you don't get the fear, so you lose a lot of strength and value. So even it's never like we know as experienced players in terms of what works and what doesn't. There's a reality that you end up getting to at a certain point in game progression where you just go, it's not worth all the effort. You just use a different champion and survive. It's so much easier. It's so much more reliable. Consistency is key. So yes. So in essence, can you be polymorphed if you resist? No, that's not what the game code suggests. Now, if it does it anyway in game, it's probably a bug, and that's a report to player.
I feel like maybe it happened before, like ages ago. Like I kind of recall it from seeing it as well, you know.
Possibly, yeah.
Maybe it was
they did do a lot of blessing changes, like
but
5 months ago.
Yeah, it's been a while. So it's
maybe
just
they jigged it up a bit there.
Just to confirm it, guys, it doesn't work. Okay, so you actually need to do something in order for polymorph to proc. So the idea of I don't need even if I don't have accuracy, I can get polymorphed is fake. So that doesn't exist. Now, the next thing that I do want to talk about polymorph is the way it interacts with stone skin, and most probably with immunity as well, which is something that I haven't checked just yet. But basically, so this is actually from a buddy who actually checked with their support. I just learned from support that it was intended that fear ship happens before stone skin, and therefore, for example, Taras will get shipped by stone skin, UDK, or Sifi. Now, think post-nerf 6-star blessing in combo with stone skin is just dumb, right? They're saying it's intended, but he thinks it's just BS. So basically, if we're going in a fight right now, so my Taras will attempt to drop fear on that UDK there, basically. And I do hope it's a stone skin UDK. If not, I'm gonna have to find a different.
It's always fun, isn't it?
I'm gonna have to find a different example. If not, and kind of like move over to something else. But right now, there you go. You see, actually, Mortu was in there. We managed to try and land the fear on somebody else. But all these things right here would have had a chance right now to polymorph my Taras as an example. So this again, it just shows how broken polymorph is. Like, that champion has stone skin. I am not able to debuff that champion, right? Like, my hands are tied. Even if I would want to debuff the champion, I cannot do it because stone skin blocks it. But guess what? Polymorph doesn't care about that I'm not actually able to land the debuff. So instead, what's gonna happen when this fear attempts to be placed on the champion with stone skin, because it's about phases, how he said it before, I'm gonna get shipped regardless. That's how broken polymorph actually is, you know?
Now, I would say with this phase, I looked into it because I had a similar message from Hell Hades, because he was having similar conversations and they were saying it's really broken. I don't actually think anything that changes with the polymorph, whether it needs accuracy or not, actually changes this mechanic, because I don't think it has an impact anyway, if that makes sense, right? The change in this essence. I actually looked at the phasing, and the application of stone skin does happen at exactly the same phase as the application of the fear from Taras. So I don't know whether it's like attack versus defense principle, where the attacker always gets to go before the defender, or some other sort of like sub phases happening, because we have been in contact with player in a bit about how the Razzlevarg passive works. When does it start collecting speed? And they had some explanations about how something after a turn start works a little bit more complicated than just straight after his turn start, which doesn't really how it is. Like, we're still trying to figure out exactly what they mean. So it's happening at the same time in terms of coding wise, but essentially the way that it kind of works, I guess, is before the Stone Skin hasn't applied before Taras is able to apply his passive effects. It's happening at the same phase, but the Stone Skin hasn't gone on yet. So it means Stone Skin, the way that it works, Polymorph, the way that it works, if you place a debuff, then you can get polymorphed. And I'm pretty sure Taras is an irresistible polymorph, irresistible fear. So you're going to get feared. And then if you place a fear, then there's always a risk that you could get polymorphed. That is the way that it's going to work. Now, there's a bit of a weird interaction, I'll be honest, because I don't think artifact set should cleanse. Like Stone Skin makes you immune, it doesn't cleanse. So what the hell is going on there?
So it kind of like reminds me of when we had the issue before when Tormin got released in the game and immunity. If you remember, Tormin used to be so powerful that he used to basically freeze all your champions. So if I was starting with immunity, I was getting frozen by Tormin, even though I had immunity on. But because the freeze from Tormin was getting applied before my immunity buff from the actual set was getting applied to me, you know? You remember that, right? So
it's a phasing issue.
Yeah, it feels like it's the same sort of a situation. And what I'm more curious about is because we're only seeing it with Taras now because that's kind of like what's constantly happening. But there are other champions that have different sort of things similar with this, that they can either debuff, they can do something like that. I do hope that in the future they will kind of rethink it. It's a shame that so many champions are getting vaulted, so many strategies are kind of like being thrown in the bin because of these like bomb champions that are as effective in the end game, and of course Reach kind of other reasons too. But before that, Polymorph was one of the main issue with it, and that was the main solution to Stone Skin, right? Like bring bombs. So now they instantly bin that once they released the bolster, once they added a polymorph and everything else. And now Marichka
basically gives you block damage if you bomb her, so you can't bring bombs against Marichka. It's like a hard counter.
They made it much harder to use different strats against it. So hopefully they will really look into it to bring
I also
bring
think
a bit of a nerf, you know.
As a 5-star Vlad enjoyer in the live arena, all they have to do, you don't have to nerf a blessing to balance a blessing. And I think this is a misconception that a lot of people probably think, like, it's so strong, we have to nerf it. Well, you don't have to nerf it if you bring options that force a player's decision. If it feels more like, oh, I don't know if I want to take polymorph or something else, then you're balancing polymorph. But the problem is, so many other blessings for a Duchess are absolutely useless. What else are you going to take on a Duchess? Like, there's so few blessings. The fact they buffed Life Harvest was great, because actually I think Life Harvest is one of the most dominant blessings if you get a higher level, because you get so much turn meter, you get so much. Eventually, you get to the point where if they can't keep their damage dealer alive, then you can just one-shot them when they come back, and it wins the fight for you. Often people have banned my Constantine thinking, oh, the Vlad won't do much, and they've had to revive it twice, and he's a 5-star. Once you've revived someone twice, they have no HP anymore. There's like 40% left. So I can just re-kill you. It's strong. So if you offer more variety, but you know, if you look at the legendary ones here, I think probably for a Duchess, you could take the leadership ore if you want, but you don't really care for that. No. You're not going to take something like Soul Reap, because Soul Reap is giga broken and busted in the sense that Harima passive reduces the ignore defense potential. It doesn't ignore shields. You don't really get any value out of Soul Reap anymore. If anyone uses that, I would recommend you don't. Ward of the Fallen is not going to help you there. It's good in certain situations.
If you have Stone Skin, it's not really gonna do much for you.
Well, any sort of damage takes a stack away. So, and unless your allies are dead, you can't really recover those stacks. It's meant to be like the Chitis blessing. That's my understanding of it. And where once everyone's died and you're the last man standing, it's meant to do lots of effort for you. It's good on some HP based champions because of the stats more than anything else, and some weird interactions with Rotus. But even temporal chains is not that impactful.
Not anymore. Really. And it is impactful for a live arena, so a lot of people are using Sifi, right? So if I'm bringing my Warlord with 6-star temporal chains, it is pretty effective against it. Yeah, like it's very impactful. But
again, you're not going to put it on everyone.
On a Duchess,
exactly. Put it on one. So you kind of like, okay, so I have a temporal in the team, maybe I have a live. Who else am I going to pick? I might as well pick Polymorph, right? There's not enough diversity in terms of the blessings. Exactly. We see it in PvE all the time. Why is Brimstone the number one picked one for legendaries? Because there's nothing else to pick.
Exactly.
Because unless you've got a 6-star Soul Reap, it's nowhere near the strength of 1-star Brimstone. So you can't really blame the player base for picking only one blessing and then nerf it to the, you know, try nerf it hard when there's no other viable options. So you don't need to nerf Polymorph. I think it could do with things like maybe only when you steal a buff.
Counters, you know, yeah, like make it work
Take
once.
its strength away. Yeah. One turn, maybe. Maybe it's not protected. Maybe you keep the stats of your current champion. You know, it works in Hydra like that. The way that you get sheeped is the same as Hydra.
Yeah.
And that keeps its turn meter, which is one of the frustrating things I see players complain about all the time. You just killed a head and you lose an entire turn of decapitation. Why? Because it was at 100% turn meter.
Yep.
And it didn't reset unless you've killed the mischief. So,
but it's not the same here, and
it's different.
They can definitely do some work on it. I think it's needed more diversity on the blessings, 100%, because how you mentioned, you're gonna go if you want to go with Life Harvest, right? Like in the current meta, when I'm doing my offense teams, most of the times I don't have a reviver, okay? And I'm not gonna revive. If I die, I die. It's not gonna benefit the enemy to run that blessing on his champions. So Polymorph is still the #1 pick, you know, and if you don't have Polymorph, you're inviting in the buff strippers in. So there's so many things that are being kind of like blocked by one single blessing. Diversity and the lack of other things is just a massive issue. Hopefully they will address it in the near future. And I don't want to hold you
more, right? It needs more than just, oh, you need accuracy on 5 out of 6. Like, come on. That's almost like a little memos come up in the dev board meeting where we need to talk about Polymorph, and they've gone, yeah, it's a little bit strong. We want to like make a new Call of the Arbiter episode, so we'll do that, and let's just put accuracy, right? That worked with Brimstone. Everyone hated us for it, but you know, eventually people still bought souls because they like it. Let's do the same thing. That'll solve the problem, guys. And it's like, no, you can't make everyone happy, but if nobody's happy, then that's a bad decision.
Absolutely. Seth, was a pleasure to have you on the channel, brother. Guys, make sure you head over and check out his channel. I'm gonna link it in the pinned comment. Show him some love. And as usual, guys, let us know your thoughts in the comments down below. What's your take on the Polymorph? What's your take generally on the so-called nerf and everything else that is going on with the blessings at the moment? What do you think about blessings diversity and other things like that? As usual, much love. Appreciate all of you guys watching, and I'll catch you all soon in the next video. Peace.